All right, good afternoon. It is 3-7 multiplying decimals that we're working with today. We've already been working with multiplying decimals with whole numbers. Now we're going to step it up with multiplying a decimal by another decimal. So what I want you to do is go ahead and hit pause, and you can write these notes down, and then we'll continue from there. All right, so the first thing it says is to set up the numbers as if there was no decimal. So when we look at this number right here, we're basically looking at it as 5,626 multiplied by 52. So we line them all up so all the numbers are as far to the right as they can go. If we recall, when we would add decimals or subtract decimals, all we would do is line up the decimal point. In this case, again, we are not. They just go all the way to the very end as if there was no decimal. In fact, we don't even need the decimal until the very end. Then we multiply. The third step is place the decimal in the answer according to how many digits there are to the right of the decimal in the original problem, just as we did yesterday, but we were only multiplying by one decimal, not two decimals. We were multiplying a decimal and a whole number. So now we're going to have to look at both numbers. So when we set it up, we go ahead and we multiply, and we get an answer of 291,552, and we're going to look back to this information right here because there are three numbers to the right of the decimal. Okay, each individual row we've got to look at. Decimals here, decimals here. We've got to look at each one separately. So 1, 2, 3 total numbers, and so we've got 3 to the right in our answer. Okay, very, very similar to what we did yesterday, except yesterday we were looking at pretty much just the top number. Now we got to look at both. So let's look at this one. I want you to go ahead and hit pause, and I want you to solve this, and then we'll do it together and see if you got it correct. So go ahead and hit pause. All right, so we're going to set this up again. 4 2/10 times 6 7/10. Now in this case, the decimals did line up, but that is not what we are ultimately trying to do. It is simply saying 42 times 67. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So 7 times 2 is 14. We're going to carry the 1. 7 times 4 is 28. Plus 1 is 29. We need to add a 0 for place value. And we're now going, because that's the place value of the 7. So now we're going to go to the 6. And 6 times 2 is 12. Carry the 1. 6 times 4 is 24. Plus 1 more is 25. Then we're going to add this row of numbers together, and we get 4. 9 plus 2 is 11. Carry the 1. 5 plus 2 is 7. Plus 1 more is 8. And 2. And now we have to go back and look at what numbers are to the right of the decimal. And there are two numbers to the right of the decimal. This one has the 2, and this one has the 7. So we need to put our decimal with 2 digits to the right. So our answer then is 28 14/100. Okay. Again, if you're having questions on this, please make note of that so you can ask it in class tomorrow. I'm going to let you go ahead and hit pause and solve this one. All right, so we end up with 1 6/10 times 9/100. Now I will tell you this. We do many times need to make certain that we put the number with the most digits on top. I think you'll find that to be easier. Okay. Now in this particular case, we can get rid of this 0 that's in front of our decimal point. That we could get rid of. Okay. You can do it either way. It doesn't matter. So since they have 2 digits, we'll just leave it as it is. 1 6/10. And then my decimal point here and 0, 9. If you want to put the 0, you can, but it's not necessary. You can get rid of that. Okay. We'll leave it in just to show you the method. So we're going to start out 9 times 6. And again, when we line these up, we're not lining decimals up. Remember that. This is just like the plain old number 9. We slide everything over to the right and line them up over here. Okay, so 9 times 6, we get 54, so we're going to carry the 5. And then 9 times 1 is 9, plus 5 more gives me 14. Then we're going to add a 0 for place value. And 0 times 6 is 0. 0 times 1 is 0. We can add 2 more zeros for place value because that's placing of the 9 and the 0. And then we slide over to this other 0. And 0 times 6 is 0. And 0 times 1 is 0. And now we can add these all together. So you're going to get 4, 4, 1, and 0. Now we need to look at this and say, all right, how many of these numbers are to the right of the decimal? Well, we have 2 here and 1 here. So a total of 3. So 3 to the right is where it needs to go. And you can see that because we put this extra 0 in here, we have it. Okay. Now if we look at this, because all these zeros, we can also look at the answer and where we ended up with the first row. Okay. 144. Because these were all zeros that we're adding on to it, we could have actually just said, all right, since these are all zeros, we'll leave it. And we've got 1, 2, 3, so we got to have 3 to the right, and then you could have added your 0 in there if you like. That's a bit of a shortcut. But if you're not feeling comfortable with that, again, just leave it as is and multiply it out like this. Okay? If you wanted to, because you looked at it and you said, oh, there's 3 numbers and this is only 2, yes, you could have flipped these around and still done it and got the same answer. Questions again, please take note of that. And I'm going to let you go ahead and do letter C. Now again, we can set this up to where this number is on top, or we can put this one on top. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to go ahead and put the number with the most digits on top. So 0 and 67 thousandths times 1 and 4 tenths. Multiplying again, numbers slid all the way as far to the right as possible. And so we have 4 times 7 is 28. Carry the 2. 4 times 6 is 24, plus 2 more is 26. 4 times 0 is 0, plus the 2 that we carried over is 2, and then 4 times 0 is 0. Add a 0 for place value of the 4, so then we have 1 times 7 is 7. 1 times, and get rid of these so we don't lose track, 1 times 6 is 6. 1 times 0 is 0. 1 times 0 is 0, and now we can add our numbers together, and we get 8. 7 plus 6 is 13, carry the 1. 6 plus 2 is 8, plus 1 more is 9, and then we get 0 and 0, and we have our decimal point to get in here, and we have 1 here, and 3 for the top, a total of 4 to the right. So we're going to count over 4, so we have 4 digits to the right, and we do, and we end up with 938 ten-thousandths. Okay? Now if you ended up doing yours the other way, to where you had the 4 tenths on top, and then you have 6, 7, 0, I'm just trying to do this so that you can see the similarities of it all. So you get 28, and then you get 9, add a 0 for place value of the 7, and we get 24, so we use the same 2, and then we get 6 times 1 is 6, plus 2 more is 8, and then we're going to add 2 more zeros for place value of the 6 and the 7, and then we go 0 times 4 is 0, 0 times 1 is 0, and then 3 numbers for the 0 or for the 7, 6, and 0, and then we have 0 times 4 is 0, and 0 times 1 is 0. Oops. And then we add these together, and we get 8. 9 plus 4 is 13, carry the 1, and you get 9, 0, 0. 4 digits again to the right of the decimal. Here's my 3, here's my 1, and my decimal goes here. So depending on which method you used, you can double check and make sure your answer is matched up. If you didn't correct or get it correct, you can see where your mistake might have been. But it doesn't matter which way you do it. This way, you had more rows, because if you've got 4 digits on the bottom, you're going to have 4 rows of numbers. Over here, we had 2 digits on the bottom, so you're only going to have 2 rows. Okay, so that's the difference. That's why sometimes I tell you to put the number with the most digits on top. Remember, 2 times 4 equals 8. 4 times 2 equals 8. Multiplication, multiplication and addition, it does not matter. Okay, that would be our commutative property that we will learn more about in the future before we do some algebra. Okay, so again, take notes on this. If there's any questions that you might have, certainly please make note of it and ask those questions in class tomorrow so we can all learn from any mistakes we made or misunderstandings. Have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow.